Welcome to Stuck, Time to Improv. I'm Mary Scott with Business Drift, and I want startup businesses to be wildly successful. Today, we're talking about sort of second stage startups. These are women over 50 who've decided to start their own business or start a new business. And I'm so happy to have my guest today is Deb Drummond from debdrummond.com. And she's an expert in some of these things. So welcome, Deb.
Thank you so much for having me, Mary. This is a great way to start the week. Great way.
So what made you decide to specialize in this particular demographic?
Well, I am 57, so let's go there. I have been an entrepreneur for 30. I'm heading into my 31st year. It certainly is very different. We can, definitely go back even just 10 years and see the different skills that people are needing or wanting, or that the world is requiring. And I have a real big heart for not only entrepreneurs, not only women that have been entrepreneurs for a long time, pioneering, but women that have decided to step into this space. I teach a lot of women how to get really comfortable with the new way of doing business. I watched many of my colleagues in the last 3 years go, I can't rise to this bar. Going from the, we used to handshake, meet for coffee, do those networking groups and all that kind of good stuff. And it got very isolating and very difficult. And the scope of technology really got vast. And so I have seen and still see, which is, I'm going to do a book on it, women over 50 in relationship to social media. And is it necessary? And what does that take? So it's a whole different ballgame. And so people, I think it's scarier now to step into doing your own business because of what are the requirements that's needed to sustain a business.
It can be scarier, but it can also be easier because there are so many more resources out there. And I kind of liken it to you're still cooking, but you're using a whole new set of ingredients. And you're also having to acquire a taste for the new food. So let's talk about what are some of the tips what are some of the things that scare people the most, and what are your tips for coping with them?
Well, I think that most people, no matter what, are a little afraid of the unknown. So first of all, if you're coming into the world of entrepreneurship in that, gorgeous stage of life around 50, then if you haven't been in entrepreneurship before, no matter what you're stepping into, even if you're stepping into the paradigm of 10 years ago, you still have that angst of the unknown, right? So there's that part of it. I think that, this is really where you kind of pull that mentor and coach down, because speed is the name of the game. I think in relationship to wanting to have success, it's much easier to stay in the game and put fear aside and unknowingness aside when you're starting to see the results that happen. So for me, a lot of the first advice I get is, who are you mentoring? Who are you hanging with? What networking group are you choosing to be in? Is it a place where you feel comfortable? And honestly, this is not a place to be afraid to say you don't know. I mean, I think the most important thing around learning things like social media, new paradigms in marketing or whatever it is it's okay to say I don't know, and get into a circle that it's okay to say I don't know, and be willing to learn. Just going back to school.
Right, and things can be new and exciting as opposed to new and scary.
Yeah,
and maybe you get to meet new people and you get to learn new things as opposed to you have to.
Yeah. But those are just things to put in your bucket. I mean, Simon Sinek talks about that, fear, scared and excitement are pretty well the same thing. You just can label it differently. So, so that would be one of the main tips that I would have for somebody is, if that is you, it may not be, you clearly, and myself as well, kind of can rise to the bar, but I didn't rise to the bar on my own. I definitely circled myself with the right people that said the right thing at the right time. And it makes a big difference. Yeah.
Does it matter what kind of business you want to start?
I don't believe so. If you are passionate about something, I was like 30 years ago, I'm like, I'm going to do an aromatherapy home party company. And people are like, aroma what? They're like, what? I'm like, holistic health. They're like, I'm like, don't eat sugar. They're like, whoa, so I was before my time. And I don't really think it matters, because I truly believe when you step into something that makes your stomach go, yes, no matter what your head's saying, your stomach's like, yes, and your head's coming up with all these ideas. If you follow that and you go to the next step and the next step and the next step, it unfolds to a place where you don't feel like you're working.
Sounds good. Are there particular resources you like to share with people?
You know what? For me, in terms of where I've had my best kind of like my best results, is that place between not knowing and fiercely finding the answer. Like not knowing and fiercely finding the answer. So for me, I'm pretty resourceful in relationships. So, I coach much like, you take people under the wing and coach them through their process in your business as well. So I'm at the place in my life where I can self-coach quite a bit, but I still, as I have in my 20s, what I do now is I have coaches that are in specific fields. So I'll have someone who does digital marketing because that's their field, and I'll really make sure that they're really strong there. I might know marketing, but they have something that they can bring to the table. And I look for personality matches. So for me, it's really about, I preach getting a coach, and I think people that are coaches should always have one as well. So for me, that's a big one. I do a lot of resource in terms of mindset. I am still an avid book reader. I produce them. I believe in them. I read them. I underline. I turn every book I have into a workbook. So if I need something, I find the resource and I take it.
So then for new businesses, getting a coach and paying for them as part of your startup budget. You need to add that to your budget to make sure that you have the right support system and the right people in place, because nobody does it alone. That's one of the 10 mistakes startups make, is they think they have to do it alone. And no, nobody does it alone. You absolutely have to have other people with different skill sets who can complement you and help you actually move your business along.
I agree. I didn't do it. I don't know about you. I've been in business for a while. I had to find the money. I had to find the money as the needs showed up. I had to find the money. But if you are in the bliss spot of being able to plan, like I'm working with my son right now, and we are implementing things that I know he's going to need in his initial plan, so we can do the initial ask for raising capital for his business. But if that is such a big part of it, that personal development, networking fees, big part of it, right? It might be a social media class, or it might be a social media expert, or it might be a marketing expert, or it might be, wherever you're lagging, right? An operations manager. I was like, operations manager. Like that I was the operations manager, operations, or a financial advisor, a CFO you can have for 4 or 5 hours a month, or 4 or 5 hours a quarter. So if you put those things now, if you don't need them, yay, you have extra money. But
well, sometimes if you don't spend the money on people with skill sets, it ends up costing you more than it would have to hire them. So I had a conversation with a lawyer the other day, and yeah, it can be more expensive to not use a lawyer.
Yeah. You know what? I think as you start to get to that place where you decide that you want to be an entrepreneur, I think don't ever discount the fact that you might be new, going into a new sector, might be an entrepreneur going into a new sector or a new division, or don't ever discount, because it's something that's unfamiliar, what you bring to the table. You have 50 years plus under your belt, and you have had life throw itself at you and you threw it back. You have either maybe parented, co-parented, uncled, aunted, you've orchestrated households, you've volunteered, you've worked at companies, you've made impression, you've made friends, you've made impact. You've already made impact in the world. You, by nature, by that stage in life, have a good sense of who you are. You probably understand boundaries, who you like, who you don't, what kind of food you like. So you already have a good sense of self. Things that when people start their business in their 20s and 30s are still trying to figure it out. So go in boldly. You are bringing so much to the table. Like you're already sitting at the boardroom. You're just making a decision to venture off in a different way, but don't ever discount what the guts and glory that it took you to get to the time that you decided you want to be an entrepreneur, really.
So shine that light. Thanks again, Deb Drummond from debdrummond.com. This is Mary Scott with Business Riff, and I want startups to be wildly successful. So join us again for Stuck, Time to Improv.